It was a quiet, peaceful evening in the small town of Clearwater. The sun had just set behind the distant hills, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. John, an ordinary man with a simple life, walked home from his late shift at the local grocery store. He was tired but content, ready to relax in his small house after a long day of work. Little did he know, this night would change everything. As John walked along the familiar path near the forest, he noticed something strange. A soft rustling noise came from the trees, followed by a low, almost melodic sound. It wasn't the usual night sounds of crickets and wind. Curious, he stopped in his tracks. Was someone out there? Maybe an animal, or even someone lost. But as the sound grew louder, he felt a chill run down his spine. It was unnatural. John hesitated, then stepped closer to the trees, his heart beating a little faster. The sounds were unlike anything he had ever heard before, soft whispers, like a conversation in a language he didn't understand. There was an odd sense of urgency in the air, something that made him feel uneasy, yet strangely drawn to it. He had to know what was happening. He pushed through the thick bushes, carefully making his way deeper into the woods. The rustling continued, but now there was something more. The faint glow of light caught his eye. As he moved forward, he saw the figures in the clearing ahead, figures that were unlike anything he had ever seen. In the center of the clearing stood a woman, or at least, she looked like a woman. She was tall and thin, her skin a strange shade of pale blue that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly, as though lit from within, and her long hair moved as if a gentle breeze was always flowing through it. Beside her, a child stood, their features just as alien, though smaller and more fragile looking. The child's eyes were wide and curious, glowing like the stars above them. John froze. His heart raced in his chest. What was this? Who were they? He had heard stories, of course stories of aliens, of creatures from other worlds, but this was real. The woman's gaze met his, and for a moment, neither of them moved. There was a deep silence, broken only by the wind in the trees. John's mind raced, but his body remained still, caught between fear and fascination. The alien woman spoke, but her words were unfamiliar, like soft musical tones. She seemed to be speaking to him, though he couldn't understand a single word. John's breath quickened. Should he run? Should he scream for help? But something inside him told him to stay. There was no malice in her eyes, only curiosity. She didn't seem threatening, but rather lost. The child looked up at the woman, then turned to John, offering a small smile. John felt a strange connection, something he couldn't explain. Despite the surrealness of the situation, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he felt pity for these beings, far from home, seemingly stranded in a world they didn't belong to. John stepped forward slowly, his feet unsure on the forest floor. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, his voice trembling. He didn't know why he said it, but the words came out. The woman tilted her head, as if trying to understand the sound of his voice. To his surprise, she nodded, a small, gentle smile forming on her lips. She didn't speak again, but the warmth in her eyes was enough. She was in need just like anyone else who was lost and searching for help. John glanced around nervously. The forest was quiet now, the strange sounds fading into the background. It felt as if time had frozen, and all that mattered was the mysterious encounter in front of him. His mind raced. What should he do next? Should he help them? Would anyone believe him if he told them what he had seen? But as he stood there, watching the alien mother and child, he made a decision. He couldn't just leave them. They needed help. He would help them, no matter the cost. With a deep breath, John took a step forward. "You're safe now," he said, more to himself than to them. The alien mother gave him another small nod, and the child smiled wider. John knew deep down that this was the beginning of something incredible, something that would change his life forever. John couldn't stop thinking about the alien mother and child. Every night, after his long shifts, he would lie awake, replaying the strange encounter in his mind. It felt like a dream, yet the lingering sense of something extraordinary stayed with him. He hadn't told anyone, afraid they would think him mad or worse, believe he was making it up. Who would believe such a thing? Yet, something deep inside told him he had to do something. These beings needed help, and he was the only one who had seen them. The next evening, John decided to visit the spot where he had first found them. He walked through the quiet streets of Clearwater, his footsteps echoing in the stillness. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth as he approached the edge of the forest. His heart raced as he stepped into the woods again, the familiar rustling in the trees feeling somehow comforting. The clearing was just as it had been before. The alien mother and child were there, standing in the moonlight, their eyes fixed on him as though they had been waiting. The mother's glowing eyes were calm, yet there was an unmistakable sadness behind them. The child stood close, clutching something in their small hands. It looked like a stone, but it shimmered with a strange, otherworldly light. John's breath caught in his throat as he slowly approached them. The fear he had felt the first time had faded, replaced by a deep, almost overwhelming curiosity. The alien mother didn't speak, but the child looked up at him, their eyes wide with silent wonder. John crouched down to their level, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what to say, but the silence between them felt heavy with meaning. "What's your name?" John asked softly, unsure if they could even understand him. He didn't expect an answer, but he felt the need to ask. The child tilted their head, almost as if considering the question. Before offering the shimmering stone to him, John hesitated for a moment, but then he reached out and gently took the stone in his hand. It felt warm, almost alive, humming faintly with energy. He gazed at it, mesmerized by the way it seemed to pulse with light. The alien mother finally spoke, her voice like a melody, soft and musical. Although the words were foreign to him, John understood the emotion behind them, trust. He looked at the mother, feeling a strange bond growing between them. In that moment, he realized that she wasn't just an alien, she was a mother, just like any other. And the child wasn't so different from his own, lost and searching for something they couldn't find. The thought struck him deeply. They weren't here to harm anyone. They were just looking for a place to call home. John stood up, holding the stone in his hand, his mind racing with possibilities. He had to help them, but how? Where could they go? They couldn't stay here, hidden in the woods forever. The danger of being discovered seemed to grow with each passing day. The mother stepped closer to him, her eyes searching his face as if asking him for something. John's heart skipped a beat. "You want to stay, don't you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The alien nodded slowly, her gaze unwavering. The child clutched the stone tightly, their innocent face filled with an unspoken plea. John knew what he had to do. He couldn't just leave them out there, stranded and alone. He couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward them, the strange connection that had formed between them in such a short time. They needed a place to stay, a safe place. "I'll help you," John said with newfound resolve. "You can stay with me. You don't have to hide anymore." The alien mother looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty, but John could see the faintest glimmer of hope in her eyes. They weren't just strangers anymore. They were a family, and as he turned to lead them back to his home, John knew that his life would never be the same. The quiet, simple existence he had once known now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by the unknown and the extraordinary. But for the first time, he didn't mind. He was ready to face whatever came next, as long as it meant keeping them safe. Days passed, and John's life began to change in ways he couldn't have imagined. The alien mother and child had settled into his home, quietly adjusting to their new life with him. They didn't speak much. Communication between them was limited to soft, melodic sounds from the mother and the child's curious glances. But there was a strange, unspoken bond forming between them. It wasn't just the obvious kindness John showed. It was something deeper. A quiet understanding passed between them every time their eyes met. The mother would often sit by the window, gazing out at the world with a look of longing in her eyes. Her alien features, once so foreign to John, now seemed almost familiar. The child, too, had grown more comfortable. They would wander round the house, exploring every corner, occasionally offering John small, unidentifiable gifts they seemed to find in the yard, a shiny rock, a piece of smooth wood, or a flower with petals that shimmered faintly in the dark. But even as the days grew warmer, there was something that didn't sit right with John. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. The quiet stillness of the town seemed to be hiding something. something that threatened to upend this fragile peace he had built with his alien family. He knew that sooner or later, someone would notice them. There was no way he could keep them hidden forever. One evening, John decided to go into town to pick up a few things. He left the alien mother and child behind, promising to return soon. But as he walked through the quiet streets, he felt a strange tension in the air. People passed him, but their eyes lingered a little too long, their whispers carried by the wind. He couldn't explain it, but it felt as though the entire town was holding its breath. The strange feeling didn't go away when he returned home. The moment he stepped through the door, he was met with the alien mother's piercing gaze. She was standing near the window, her eyes wide with fear, her body tense as though she had sensed something too. The child stood beside her, clutching one of the shiny rocks they had found, its light flickering in the dim room. John's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't put his finger on it, but something was definitely wrong. The atmosphere in the house had changed, and it was as though the air had thickened with anticipation. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a loud thud from outside, followed by the unmistakable sound of a vehicle approaching. John rushed to the window and peered out. His blood ran cold as he saw a dark, sleek vehicle parked on the edge of the property, its lights casting an eerie glow across the yard. "They've found us," John whispered, his voice barely a breath. The alien mother turned to him, her eyes filled with a silent urgency. She knew what was coming. Whatever danger had been lurking in the shadows was now closing in. John's mind raced. He had to protect them. The thought of losing the family he had come to care for so unexpectedly was too much to bear. Without wasting another second, he turned to the alien mother. "You need to hide." Now, she didn't argue. She understood. The trust between them was unspoken, but it was there, and in that moment, it was all they had. John led them to the back of the house, where he had prepared a small hidden space in the cellar. "Stay here. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." The child looked up at him, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. John knelt down, brushing the child's hair from their face. "It'll be okay," he said softly, trying to reassure them, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. As he closed the cellar door behind them, John turned to face the front of the house. His heart was pounding in his chest, his hands trembling. Whatever was coming, he had no idea if he was ready for it. But one thing was certain: he would fight to keep them safe, no matter the cost. The night felt unnaturally still as John stood alone in his living room, his heart racing. The dark vehicle remained parked outside, its lights dimming as it waited in the shadows. John's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Who were they? What did they want with his alien family? There was no time to waste. He needed to act before it was too late. With shaky hands, he glanced around the house, looking for any way to defend it, any way to keep his new family safe. But there was nothing. It wasn't a fortress, and he was no warrior. The only thing he had was the trust the alien mother and child had placed in him. And that trust couldn't be broken, not now. John's mind raced with ideas. Could he reason with whoever was outside? But deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't about conversation, it was about survival. Whoever was out there wasn't interested in talking. They were here for one reason: to take what they wanted. He glanced toward the cellar, where the alien mother and child were hiding. He could hear the soft sound of their breathing through the floorboards, quiet but steady. It hurt him to think of them scared and alone down there, trapped in the darkness while he faced whatever was coming. But he couldn't risk bringing them into this fight. Not yet. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A sharp, deliberate sound that echoed through the house. It was calm, controlled, but it carried with it an unspoken threat. John's throat tightened, and for a moment, he stood frozen, unable to move. Should he open it? Should he run? But he knew running wasn't an option. Not with the alien family depending on him. He took a deep breath and walked to the door, trying to steady his trembling hands. As he reached for the handle, he hesitated, his mind racing. He wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever lay beyond that door. But he couldn't stand by and do nothing. He couldn't betray their trust. With one final breath, he swung the door open. Standing in front of him was a man in dark clothing, his face partially obscured by a hood. His eyes were cold, calculating. The man's posture was stiff, as though he were a soldier rather than a civilian. There was something about him that didn't belong, like he was a part of a world far darker than anything John had ever known. "Evening," the man said, his voice smooth but carrying an edge. "We're looking for someone. Thought you might be able to help us." John's heart skipped a beat. The man wasn't asking, he was demanding. "I don't know what you're talking about," John replied, trying to keep his voice steady, his body tense with the urge to fight or run. "I haven't seen anyone." The man's lips twitched, as though he knew John was lying. But he didn't press further. Instead, his gaze shifted to the side, past John, as if he were already searching the house, calculating his next move. "I think you do know," the man said, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. "We're not here to hurt you, but we need them. The alien mother and child. They're not meant to be here. You're just holding them hostage." John's breath caught in his throat. They knew. They had found them. The dread that had been building inside him finally burst to the surface, but he refused to let it show. He had to protect them. "I won't let you take them," John said, his voice firm despite the terror inside. The words felt foreign coming from his mouth, but they were real. He wasn't going to back down. The man's eyes flickered with surprise, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by a cold, dangerous look. "You don't have a choice," he said, taking a slow step forward. "You'll regret this." John stood his ground. The door between them felt like a thin barrier, but it was all he had. "I won't let them go. Not without a fight." The man paused, and for a long moment, they simply stared at each other. The tension in the air thickened, like something was about to snap. Then, without another word, the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the night as silently as he had come. John stood frozen in place, his heart hammering in his chest. It wasn't over. It had only just begun. As he closed the door, John turned toward the cellar. The alien mother and child were still waiting, still hiding. They were safe for now, but he knew it wouldn't last. The fight was coming, and this time, there would be no turning back. John couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in, tightening around him like a noose. The man in the dark clothes hadn't returned, but the threat still lingered in the air. The chill of the night seemed to creep inside the house, and John's eyes kept darting toward the window, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Every passing minute felt heavier, as if time itself was working against him. The alien mother and child remained hidden in the cellar, their presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. John had done his best to reassure them, telling them that they were safe. But deep down, he knew the truth. They weren't safe. Not yet. He paced around the living room, running his hands through his hair, trying to think. He needed a plan, something solid, something that would give him a chance to protect them when the next threat arrived. But every idea felt too risky, too dangerous. He wasn't prepared for this. He wasn't trained to fight. All he had were his instincts and his resolve to do whatever it took to keep the alien family safe. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a car engine, the low rumble of the engine growing louder as it approached the house. John froze. He wasn't sure if he was imagining it, but the hair on the back of his neck stood up. The car slowed to a stop, and John's heart skipped a beat as he looked toward the front door. The knock came again, this time more urgent. His instincts screamed at him to hide, to run, but there was nowhere to go. With a trembling hand, John reached for the door. His breath was shallow, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He knew what was waiting on the other side. Whatever came next, it wouldn't be easy, but he couldn't let them take the aliens. Not without a fight. As he opened the door, he was met with an unexpected sight. Standing there was not just one man, but a group at least 5 or 6, all dressed in black tactical gear, their faces masked. Their eyes were cold, their posture aggressive, and they were armed. John's stomach twisted with dread. This wasn't just a random search. This was a mission. "You're harboring alien fugitives," the leader of the group said, his voice sharp and commanding. "We know they're here, and we're taking them with us." John's blood ran cold. He didn't hesitate, though. He wasn't going to let them take the mother and child without a fight. He stepped forward, blocking the doorway. "You're not taking them," John said, his voice low but resolute. "They're not your property. They're not your enemy. They're just trying to survive." The leader's eyes narrowed, and he took a step toward John, his expression hardening. "You're making a mistake, kid. You have no idea what you're dealing with." John didn't flinch. He couldn't. The alien family needed him, and he wasn't about to back down. "I don't care what you think I know. I won't let you hurt them." There was a tense silence, broken only by the soft rustling of the wind outside. John could feel the pressure building, the weight of his decision hanging over him. The men in black stood still, assessing him, sizing him up. He could see the glint of weapons, the readiness to strike. The leader let out a sharp breath and raised his hand. "You really want to do this the hard way?" John's mind raced. There was no way he could take all of them on. He wasn't strong enough, but he couldn't just stand there and let them take the family. He had to act. In a split second, John made a decision. He turned quickly, slamming the door shut and locking it. He rushed toward the back of the house, heart pounding. The cellar. He had to get them out. He had to move fast. John reached the stairs just as the first loud thud of a boot hitting the door rang through the house. The pounding started immediately, frantic and relentless. They were coming in. "Stay hidden," John whispered to the alien mother and child, his voice barely a breath. "I'll protect you." He didn't know how, but he knew he had to buy them time. His mind scrambled for a way out and escape, but the only thing he could think of was to fight, to keep them safe, even if it meant risking everything. The pounding at the door grew louder, and John's breath became shallow with fear and determination. This was it, the moment when he would find out just how far he was willing to go to protect the beings he had come to care for. The air in the house felt thick with tension as John crouched near the cellar door, his heart pounding in his chest. Every sound, the pounding on the door, the harsh whispers outside, seemed to grow louder, drowning out his thoughts. He could feel the eyes of the alien mother and child on him, their silent presence a constant reminder of what was at stake. John's mind raced with thoughts of escape, but there was no escape, not from the enemies outside, not from the responsibility he now carried. The harsh reality hit him. He wasn't just protecting his home anymore. He was protecting these two alien lives, a mother and child who had trusted him when they had nowhere else to go. It was his choice now. He could either hide in fear or stand his ground and fight. The pounding on the door grew more frantic. John's hands trembled as he silently moved toward the back window, peering outside. A black SUV sat parked on the street, and several more men in dark clothing were scattered across the yard, searching for any sign of movement. Their eyes were sharp, scanning the house with military precision. They weren't here just to take the aliens, they were here to eliminate any threat. And John was that threat. With a deep breath, John turned back to the cellar. He needed a plan. Time was running out, and he had no idea how to stop these men from breaking in. But one thing he knew for sure, he couldn't let them reach the alien mother and child. Not while they were under his protection. John's eyes scanned the room, desperate for anything that could help him. His mind skipped over several plans, each one more impossible than the last. But then, a thought struck him. He had been so focused on fighting them off that he hadn't thought about how to escape himself. If he could get the alien family out of the house undetected, he could buy some time. "Stay close," John whispered to the alien mother, who was still sitting quietly in the cellar, her eyes wide with understanding. She had sensed the danger even before John did. Without a word, she stood, her child following her like a shadow, and together they moved to the corner of the room. John's fingers brushed the hidden trapdoor that led to the crawlspace beneath the house. It wasn't much, but it was a way out. He had used it to store old tools and supplies over the years, never imagining it would become his only escape route. The alien mother looked at him with curiosity, her silent gaze asking what they needed to do. John didn't hesitate. "We're going out through here," he said quietly, and the alien mother nodded, guiding the child toward the trapdoor. John moved to the cellar entrance, his pulse quickening as he heard the men outside move closer. The door was about to give way. With a quick motion, John opened the trapdoor, revealing the narrow crawlspace beneath. He motioned for the alien mother and child to enter first, then followed them down. As they moved into the dark space, John's breath hitched. The sound of the front door splintering filled the air, and he knew they had no time left. John squeezed through the crawlspace, his body moving in the dark with urgency, his heart racing. The air was thick and musty, the earth heavy with the smell of dirt and decay. It was cramped, but it was their only chance. They moved quickly, the alien child clinging to the mother's side as they crawled through the narrow tunnel. John's mind screamed at him to move faster, but he knew they had to be careful. One wrong move, and they could be found. The tunnel stretched on for what felt like miles, twisting and turning beneath the house. John's thoughts raced as he led the way, but all he could focus on was getting them to safety. Every step he took, every turn he made, brought them closer to freedom, closer to the hope that they could escape this nightmare. But as they reached the end of the tunnel, John's thoughts shifted. He had led them out of the house, but where would they go? What would happen next? They were still vulnerable. The men were out there, searching for them. There was no guarantee that this escape would be enough. Still, as John crawled out of the tunnel into the cool night air, he realized one thing: the fight wasn't over. It had only just begun, and no matter what it took, he would protect them. The alien mother and child were no longer strangers. They were his family now, and he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. The cool night air hit John's face as he stepped out of the crawlspace, his breath visible in the dim light. The alien mother and child stood beside him, their presence both a comfort and a constant reminder of the danger they were all in. They had made it out of the house, but the world outside seemed more treacherous than ever. The quiet town of Clearwater was no longer safe. The men in dark gear were still out there, hunting for them, and now they had no place to hide. John felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had led them into the night, but where could they go? There was no turning back now. The alien mother's eyes met his, filled with both gratitude and the same silent fear that gnawed at him. She didn't need to speak. He knew what she was asking. Where next? How could they keep running, and for how long? He took a deep breath, trying to think. His mind raced, but there was no clear answer. He couldn't go to the authorities. He had no idea who to trust anymore, and he certainly couldn't go back to the town. The alien family was too exposed, too vulnerable. We need to get to the mountains, John finally said, his voice low and determined. The mountains were a place he knew well. They were rugged, isolated, and would provide some cover. It was their only chance. He could feel the weight of the decision on his shoulders, but he wasn't about to let them down. The alien mother nodded slowly, as if she understood the severity of the situation. Without a word, they began walking through the night, the trees and shadows swallowing them as they moved deeper into the forest. The child clung to the mother's side, their small form glowing faintly in the dark. It was almost surreal, like a dream. John leading these beings from another world, walking through a world that felt so alien to them both. As they moved, John's thoughts kept drifting back to the events that had led them here. He had no idea what the men were after or who they really were. All he knew was that they were dangerous, and they wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. The weight of the uncertainty pressed against him, but he had no choice. The alien family needed him now, and he wasn't going to fail them. The path through the forest was steep and treacherous, but John pushed forward, keeping a steady pace. His mind raced, thoughts of the past and the future swirling together in a storm of uncertainty. How long could they keep running? What would happen if the men found them again? He couldn't stop thinking about the alien mother's face, the way her eyes seemed to hold the weight of the entire universe. She had seen things, lived through things that he couldn't even begin to comprehend. And yet, she trusted him. That thought gave him strength. As they neared the base of the mountains, the night air grew colder. The forest around them seemed to grow quieter, as if the world itself was holding its breath. John looked back at the alien family, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of the child's gift. For a moment, everything felt strangely peaceful, but he knew better than to let his guard down. The danger was still out there, lurking in the dark. Just beyond the trees. We're almost there, John whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was trying to reassure them or himself. The alien mother gave him a small, grateful smile, her eyes glimmering in the darkness. The child, too, looked up at him, their expression soft with trust. John's heart swelled with emotion, and he realized, in that moment, that this wasn't just about protecting them anymore. It was about the bond they had formed, an unspoken promise that he would do whatever it took to keep them safe, no matter the cost. They reached the base of the mountains just as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. John paused for a moment, looking up at the towering peaks ahead. They were safe, for now, but he knew this was only the beginning. They had escaped, but the fight was far from over. The men who had hunted them would never give up, and John couldn't let his guard down, not now, not ever. He turned to the alien mother and child. "We'll make it," he said, his voice steady. "I'll make sure of it." The alien mother nodded, her gaze filled with quiet strength. The child squeezed her hand, their tiny form glowing brighter in the growing light. Together, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. And for the first time, John felt a sense of hope. They were in this together, and together they would survive.